Hey everybody, Steve-O here from Movies and TVs on the Ball, and welcome to Walk Me with The Walking Dead, a podcast where I look at The Walking Dead and give you my thoughts on it. This is part of Netflix Night, and I just wanted to give you my quick review. I'm not going to go into the whole series. I'm just kind of giving you kind of a real look at kind of just the pilot episode of The Walking Dead. Now, Walking Dead came out in 2000, kind of was released around like Halloween of 2000. I want to say 2010 and ended in 2022. It starred Norman Reedus as Daryl Dixon. You know Norman Reedus, who was in he was in, other than The Walking Dead, he's been in uh see, he's been in Robot Chicken. He did voice work for Voltron, American Dad, and he was in the show. He was in the movie Vacation. Then you had Andrew. I want to say his name is Andrew Lincoln. Andrew Lincoln, who was in a film called Love Actually, and he's kind of really the main focus of Walking Dead. He was in Love Actually. He was in uh, episodes of Robot Chicken, and he was in let's see. Anyway, he's in a couple things. But this is pretty much his big role that he was in. The I'm just gonna get to the pilot. The pilot starred, and then you had John uh, Baristal, I think is his name, who plays Shane, who is Andrew Link or ish Rick's partner, and you know him from recently from The Punisher. So the pilot episode where um, starts out where we see we see Shane. We always see Shane. We see Rick is in the process of he's he's driving around, and he sees this little he gets gas at a gas station, and as he's getting gas at the gas station, he notices there's no all these cars are on the road, and he's like kind of concerned, and he sees this little girl just walking by herself, and she's kind of in her robe and pajamas with her slippers, and he's like, "Little girl, I'm a police officer. Do you need some help?" And he's like, and she turns around, and when he turns around, her face is completely cut off, and she starts kind of coming closer and closer and closer to him, that he ends up having to take a shooter in the head. And then we're sort of go back in time, I think, where Shane and Rick are eating burgers at a eating burgers on a kind of at like their squad car, and as they're eating burgers, or they hear on the rate, they kind of talk about um, kind of their family life. And then they hear on the radio that there is a um, speeding car on its way, and so they take out the the nail tracks as the car speeding through, getting chased, and they got their guns formed. And as their guns are formed, the car flips over, and it does a couple flips. But the guys that are on there are either on some sort of adrenaline, and they crawl out and they start shooting at the Rick and his police crew. And as they're shooting at him, Rick gets shot and starts bleeding out. And then he wakes up in the hospital after, him kind of fading in and out where um, people are bringing him stuff. So he wakes up in the he wakes up and walks out of this dingy dark hospital, and he starts noticing like things aren't what it should be, because he starts noticing that there are um, there's no staff there. The door, there's he walks towards a door that is completely blocked off, and it says um, it's completely blocked off, that it says like do they're dead outside, do not open, dead inside. And he hears this thumping and thumping sound, and as the doors there's like are slowly opening, and we can see the fear in um, Rick's eyes. And it's kind of cool because you get to see the hand coming out. I see a hand coming out, trying to barricade the doors. And I like the fact that this show doesn't really, I guess there doesn't give you, the pilot episode doesn't give you an example of why the zombies are half the dead are walking per se. But what's interesting is, so what dead are walking. So then Rick ends up escaping escaping through the basement of the hospital, and he ends up walking through kind of um, walking through the parking lot of the hospital, and he sees all these body bags lined up, um, and he ends up it's kind of him against the world, kind of him kind of like last man standing kind of thing. And where he ends up walking, he he finds his old house, and in his old house he's looking for his family. They're not there. He walks out and ends up getting hit in the head with a shovel by the son of, I want to say, son of I can't remember the name of his son. The son of Morgan Jones, and they end up hitting him in the head with a shovel, and Morgan Jones points a gun at him and says he's like, because he doesn't know that he is who Rick is, and he ends up saying, "Did you get bit?" And they kind of put him up for the night, but yet they sort of uh, tie him to the bedpost just to make sure that he's not a zombie and he's not going to hurt them. And then he ends up having dinner with Rick ends up having dinner with his with Mr. Morgan Jones's family, Morgan Jones and his son. And there's this real they really kind of bond that later on in that night about stuff, about kind of their family. Morgan talks about his wife and how how she's still out there, and there's this really small moment where at the middle of the night he's standing he stands watch, and his wife ends up coming zombified or Walking Deadified, coming up to the porch and crawling out at the house, and then Rick is kind of informed about all that, and then Rick ends up kind of they keep on their routes toward they keep on and then they keep on their Rick ends up going to finding his old house and realizing that basically his wife and kids are no longer there. And but yet so they end up finding a shower and kind of cleaning themselves up. They there's this moment where they end up finding after they find a shower, cleaning themselves up, they end up going toward kind of finding this old house, like um, this whole area um, where there's this field, and we see kind of how Morgan is kind of dealing with the woman he knows, kind of is still out there. The woman that he loves is not really out there. It's still her body's out there, but she's kind of zombified, and he's going through pictures. And as he's going through pictures, he notices that he sees, and this is kind of a real quiet moment where he sees his wife, who's now zombied, and he ends up having to shoot her, but you can kind of really feel that the emotion of how he doesn't want to do that. Um, I really like this, and then and then Shane and then Shane is with a bunch of other survivors who have kind of made camp in the camp out in the woods with the rest of the survivors, and he's kind of been hanging out with, I want to say, Lori, with his wife Lori, and they end up having sort of a relationship. We kind of see that they're having kind of a relationship behind Rick's back. Rick ends up going to a Rick ends up going to another kind of abandoned farm and finding or abandoned church. And I like the fact that when he finds the abandoned church, he goes in and sees this sign that says "Forgive us," and and he ends up finding a horse and riding horseback back into the town where he sees a bunch of the sea of the Walking Dead zombies, and um, they end up kind of attacking him and his horse, and then this makes uh, Rick scared, and he starts looking for cover, and finds an underground bunker, and we see him kind of go through it. So it's a real he end up going to the underground bunker and calling for help, and that's kind of the end of the episode. So it's a really good, strong pilot episode. I think it kind of works. Um, it has a lot of meat on it. We don't really get to but we don't get that much of the characters in it. But I really like this pilot. I think the pilot worked really well. Um, you can. I do like the fact that there is these moments where there's that even though there's zombies, there's this sort of human element. So I have to give Walking Dead a minus, or A plus, excuse me, because I think it works. It's a really good show. It gets me hooked for a great pilot. Um, I'm really kind of interested in. This is just a show I've always wanted to cover. So anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on The Walking Dead, and as always, like and subscribe. Peace.